Most of you are going to be instantly dismissive about the topic of this video, and I totally understand. Like you're gonna come with some preconceived notion about what the terms and what the language and what the meaning of things are, and you're gonna be like, no, that can't happen. But I gotta say, this is not my opinion. This is a critical analysis of the definition of transgender to try and figure out what it actually means, and it's not my opinion, okay? I have to accept the definition just as uncomfortably or unexpectedly as everyone else is approaching it, yeah? So I was in the same position as you guys, and I was trying to figure out why so many people instantly start arguing about the topic of transgenderism, and it usually starts to divulge into a disagreement about what the term actually means, and as a subcategory what the terms gender and sex actually mean as well. So here I'm gonna explain to you exactly what the hell is up and why the hell people get confused over this shit, and how to think about it. How I think properly about this subject. I'm going to talk about the Wikipedia definition about this term, and I know Wikipedia isn't the source of all absolute truths or anything like that, but it is an indicator of what the common mindset or the common trend of thought is, and if it's not an indication of that, it's definitely something that propagates or perpetuates it, right? So regardless of what you think of Wikipedia, what it says on Wikipedia, it's important to know what it says on Wikipedia because it influences people. So the Wikipedia definition, I'll get to that now. Transgender people have a gender identity or gender expression that differs from the sex that they were assigned at birth. So right there, we've got the terms gender and sex that I'll explore in a moment, right? And then it goes on to say, transgender, often shortened as trans, is also an umbrella term. Umbrella term, you gotta remember that. In addition to including people whose gender identity is the opposite of their assigned sex, trans men or trans women, it may include people who are not exclusively masculine or feminine. People who are non-binary or genderqueer. So genderqueer and non-binary is being described as people who are not exclusively masculine or feminine. So that's the meat of it right there. People who are not exclusively masculine or feminine. Now, I'm going to have to dissect that, but I have to start right from the beginning, and I have to break the misconceptions about what the terms gender and sex actually mean, right? So gender, it often people are divided into saying it's either biological or it's a social construct, and it's kind of related to both. It's neither one nor the other as an absolute, because gender is the expression of our biological sex, as what it said in Wikipedia. So the expression of our biological sex comes in different forms, and it's not only how we feel and express ourselves, it's also how other people interpret our expressions as well. And this is something that changes over time. A large part of gender is fashion, and the way we make ourselves look. Not just the way we feel, but the way we make ourselves look, expression. So that is distinctly a different thing to biological sex, i.e. whether you have a penis or a vagina, or whether you are somewhere in between through the developmental stage, which is what intersex people are called. And intersex people are totally different. It's a different concept to transgender. It's not related to transgenderism. It's not actually in the definition for transgenderism, right? but non-binary and genderqueer is, because it's an umbrella term. And my sneaking suspicion is that in the social sciences field, when they come across ideas and terms that they don't quite understand, they tend to lump multiple ones together that are kind of related, and they just, and it's now, that's what the definition of transgender changed, right? So it never used to be an umbrella term. It used to be specifically people with gender dysmorphia or gender dysphoria, and then several years ago they, in addition to gender dysmorphia, in addition to that, they added on a bunch of other stuff. So now you've got cross-dressers included in there as well. And with new terms like non-binary, I'll read it again. Non-binary are people who are not exclusively masculine or feminine. Now, what is masculinity and femininity? It's not specifically our biological sex, is it? It may not even be what people are initially attracted to either. For example, when you see someone across the street and based on visuals, based on the way they move, the way they dress, the way they are acting from across the street, you may be attracted to this person, but you don't know what their biological gender is. Biological sex. You don't know, even I got it confused there. You don't know what their biological sex is. You don't know what's in their pants. But you're still attracted to that. You can still be attracted to that person. So what is it that you're attracted to? You're not attracted to the biological sex, are you? Somewhere down the line you may be, as far as wanting to reproduce and pheromones and stuff like that go. But from across the street, when you have that initial visual attraction to someone, it's not because of their biological sex, it's because of their gender expression. And I can say that I might not even like every single woman, or every single female. So to say that we are attracted to the opposite sex, I think is an incorrect statement. It's commonly used, but I think it's an incorrect statement, because we don't, like I said, we don't know what's in their pants. We don't know what their biological sex is. So that's not what we're broadly, generally attracted to, right? We're attracted to gender, which is the expression of masculinity and femininity. It's what we think that our biological sex is meant to behave as, or express as, or be perceived as in the greater society, and where we fit within that greater society, where we want to place ourselves in there. So you can have traditionally, tomboys, females who would, I'm stereotyping here, but females who would grow up in an environment around a lot of brothers, I guess, and they would dress and behave and act like one of the boys, and joke and laugh and not wear a lot of makeup and not be on the feminine side of things. So that's it's a tomboy. So that is classed as transgender as well. And you've got metrosexual men who take a lot of care into their appearance and their hair, and plucking their eyebrows and appearances and stuff like that. Things that traditionally, from my perspective anyway, again, this is my perspective of what masculinity and femininity are, and everyone is going to have a slightly different perspective of this, and that perspective is going to shift over time. So they're two specific types of trends that people either try to fit into, or they try to complement, or they place themselves relative to those specific trends, yeah? And when you don't exclusively fit into one of those trends, you're non-binary or you're genderqueer according to the definition, right? And you have to ask yourself now, who would exclusively, i.e. 100% fit into their own perception of what masculinity or femininity is. When I think masculinity, I think in my head Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? A model that I envisage to be at the height of masculinity. Now, I don't consider myself to be like Arnold Schwarzenegger in that regard of being 100% masculine. And I have to ask myself, does Arnold Schwarzenegger also consider himself to be 100% masculine, or does he have some traits that he would consider feminine? Does he do anything that he thinks is in the feminine spectrum of expression or feeling, or something that would be interpreted by others as feminine? Does he like to nurture and care for people? And if so, does that make him non-binary? And I think it would. I think it does. I think that you would have to have some sort of identity disorder to think that you are 100% masculine or 100% feminine. You would have to have an identity disorder. And I think we frequently see people with these types of identity disorders getting a lot of plastic surgery and trying to look like a Ken doll or trying to look like a Barbie doll, some sort of heightened impression that they've got in their head of what masculinity and femininity is. Based on that, everyone on the planet is transgender. And if you're not, then you have a gender identity disorder. Oftentimes, the terms sex and gender are used in place of one another seemingly without the person knowing the correct context within which they're using that actual word. If you go and look at some other definitions of transgender, instead of using masculinity and femininity, which are related to gender expression and gender impression and gender feelings, they use the term male and female, which is hard set in a biological way. Like, you can determine male or female with a blood sample and DNA and genetics. But as far as transgender goes, it's often spoken about in the wrong way, I think. And I'm trying to clear this up, and I was amazed myself when I read the definition, and I tried to get my head around it because I was facing my own struggle with my own masculinity and my own identity, because I'm not 100% masculine. I can't say that. And therefore, when I was reading the definition for transgender, I had to say to myself, this is talking about me. This is including me. And I had to then ask myself, how many other people is this referring to? And when I sat there and I thought about it, like, how many people actually think that they are 100% masculine or feminine? And I think it's an extremely small percentage. And it was really funny. When I was doing photography, there was pretty much an open assignment that we got to do for college. And we had to find a model that wanted to be photographed for whatever reason and present them. And I like fucking with people's heads. So I managed to find a cross-dresser, biologically male cross-dresser, who had amazing feminine legs and a really masculine body, like I would be envious of that body, right? And strangely attracted to legs that might look like that as well, right? So, I could see that clear distinction from the bottom half of the body to the top half, and that's how this is how this person played their expression, yeah, and there would sort of contrast between the two. So I took a series of 9 photos, and the first 3 were some sexy legs, right, and the next 3 were like a muscular, masculine torso, yeah, and then the last 3 were full body shots where you could see the legs in fishnet stockings and the muscular torso at the same time, right? And even though I presented the photos that way, people still didn't get that it was the same person. Like the social expectation of what masculine and feminine are so hard set in people, rightly so. Like, I'm not saying there's something wrong with that. It's rightly so, but it was evident there when I had the same person photographed in different ways, and I was showing that this person is a cross-dresser. Yet people were still like, well, they're a married couple, right? They're boyfriend and girlfriend, right? And to the people that were apprehensive about this video just going into it, you shouldn't have hard set expectations about what gender, masculinity or femininity actually are, because they do keep changing, and it's not to have a go at biological sex or anything. That's extremely important and extremely valid, and it's not going anywhere, right? Despite what the social climate keeps doing in trying to twist the terms and use them in alternation, right? Despite that, you have to really look at it as biological sex and gender being two distinct but related things. Once you start doing that, then you can start understanding what the hell people are trying to say and not get into arguments with them, and be more clear about how you express yourself. In doing so, I think we can just understand one another a lot better, which is part of this whole Equality Genesis project that I started up a while ago about seeing how we use language, and whether it's discriminatory language or not, or whether it's necessary to use certain labels and things like that. So it's in that exploration of the language that we have around us that I was able to dissect the definition of transgender like this. And it's just bizarre to me that everything can be seen as inverted, right? Like the definition, like people will commonly have a go at transgenderism by saying it's a mental disorder, and other people will have make an attempt at trying to blend everything together, right? But reading the definition, it's the complete opposite. It's the complete opposite. So you can quite easily, by logically, rationally, and critically assessing the definition of the word transgender on Wikipedia, you can say that everyone on the planet is transgender, and if you're not, then you have a gender identity disorder. Thanks. Peace out, and keep sending those nudes. Thank you.